Hey everyone, this is Pause or Repeat. Here we figure out whether a game is really worth your time and money. Today's game is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. This is a sequel to the first game that came out back in 2011. Because of the huge gap between games, some players may not have played the first, but will that make it more difficult for the game to succeed or not really matter? To find out, let's start by going over the gameplay. The gameplay of Space Marine 2 is a mix of third-person shooter and hack-and-slash melee combat. You can see inspiration from Gears of War as well as Doom, especially as you rip apart enemies in glorious combat gore finishers. There are a handful of primary and secondary weapons to choose from, but melee combat is definitely required. Melee combat is effective at close ranges and has a simple combo system to weave in heavy attacks by holding the input in the middle of a combo. You are also able to parry attacks and dodge out of the way of attacks you cannot parry, both indicated by glowing starbursts, blue and red respectively. Combat is a visceral experience, where the game puts you on the edge of death often if you are not careful due to the fact that you are heavily outnumbered. Luckily for you, you have two squad mates to help you in each mission, which can be played by your friends instead of the game's AI if you would like. Outside of the campaign missions, there is an operations mode that tells side stories in between campaign missions, and a PvP mode as well that is simple yet effective in delivering a decent experience outside of the story. But of course, we have to talk about the story considering this is Warhammer 40k. Since this is a Warhammer 40k game, you can expect that the lore behind everything is complex much more than the game explains. The game is also a sequel, which doesn't help that. However, the game doesn't keep new players out of the loop, and you can pick up things easily through context of dialogue and environments. To put things simply, you play as Titus, a character from the first game, in a conflict against the Tyranids, an insectoid alien species and seemingly unstoppable force. Titus is reassigned from the Death Watch to lieutenant of an Ultramarine squad fighting the Tyranids. Without going into spoilers, it is quickly realized that more is at stake than just the fight against the Tyranids. But now the question still stands. Pause or repeat?
Fight on, brothers, for the Emperor! There's not a whole lot of games that make you want to say something like that, and I feel like the only other game that came out this year that made you want to have such high intensity conversations was Helldivers 2. What do you make of this game, Chris?
Oh man, Space Marines 2 is like a fever dream of every Xbox 360 fanboy where, you know, Gears of War meets Warhammer, and you get to decide whether you're gonna blast your enemies with alien guns or give them that very personal chainsaw sword hug. So, HenricK, I mean, what do you vibe with the most? Do you like that melee combat action, or are you vibing with the alien gun warfare?
You know what? I always found myself enjoying more the melee combat than the shooting, but you have to really do both. And that, it feels a little weird at first. I'm not used to the whole having to, like, switch between them. It almost felt like it was made more for a controller, but I played this on keyboard and mouse, so, you know, I'm having to, you know, juggle melee control.
That sounds like a skill issue. PC gamers complain.
I figured out, all right? It's not a skill issue if I figure it out, okay?
Oh, okay. But no, I feel you. Like, playing Space Marines 2 feels like being dropped into a chaotic war zone with more twists and turns than a roller coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain.
Yeah. But that's the whole point of it, you know? You're thrown into the action right in even the first mission, and it just gets more and more intense from that first mission. Yeah. There's so many moments that I can look back on and be like, that was awesome.
Yeah,
like,
well,
the
especially
fact that I went through all that and I survived was just, oh, that was awesome.
Well, yeah, especially when you'll be hopping between different planets, dealing with plot twists, and of course, you know, your squad mates will start beefing at the worst possible moments and the most serious tone, because in the end, I gotta just say this, HenricK, we're so back, baby. No more woke malarkey, right? Everybody's like, where's the humor? Where's all the, you know, the gender norms? Where's all? No one cares. You're in war, baby. Like, the intensity's up there, and I think that's really, really cool. And you know, another big gamble that they took was, forget the orcs from the old days. Now you're up against an alien army. And I mean, they come in every shape and size, from tiny nuanced swarms to the massive monsters that make Bigfoot look like a house cat. I mean, it's insane.
And the swarms are no, you know, thing to scoff at either. I mean, even from the first mission that I've seen so many people react to at this point, The
that
moment
dive.
that this huge swarm of Tyranids come in, everyone's like, "Oh, that's a lot. Do I have to fight that?" Yes, you do. You are
Well,
definitely fighting that right now.
well, especially with the original game being almost a decade old, it's like jumping from a medieval fantasy to a sci-fi epic where the aliens don't just invade, they're coming out for cosmic revenge, and you feel
Mhm.
that at every mission, every single mission. And I gotta, you've got these alien worlds that look like someone let a kid loose in a paint section. I mean, they're just beautiful. And then you get these random environments, HenricK, that like have these gothic buildings that are so moody they make your emo phase look like sunshine. If you know what I'm saying. So like,
Yeah, I mean that's just the Warhammer 40K universe though. Is much as much futuristic stuff as there is, there's always like that gothic influence, even down to the whole religious aspect of the Space Marines mantra,
yeah.
being like in the first mission they'll be like, all right, now the personnel can start prayers of channeling. It's like, what? Why
Yeah,
are we doing
right.
prayers? This is not what I expected, but it's just what they do, you know?
And it felt cool because you felt like with the art design, they didn't feel like they were held obligated to keep to like some certain centric idea. Like they really explore different environments throughout the game. And for a squad-based shooter where you start with bots as your teammates, it's cool. I thought I love features like that. You definitely have your digital entourage who are slightly more reliable than your average NPC. You know what I mean? They'll help you fend off the enemies. They'll even help
Yeah.
you get you up when you're down. Because let's face it, when you're wearing that heavy armor, you're going to take a face plant. But I don't know. I still felt like even though you have those NPCs, HenricK, it's always better to replace those bots with friends. And I think that was an
yeah,
amazing
100%.
feature that Space Marines 2 brought to this video game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a game that you will have an endless amount of replayability with friends, so long as you have people to play with, because, that's always a struggle for some games as well as actually getting someone to join you in it. But if
Yeah.
you have the opportunity, it's definitely a game that does benefit from having that squad based, with your friends instead of the AI, because, yeah, the AI can be reliable, but
But
sometimes
it's a way different
doing some
experience.
real,
Yeah.
real stupid stuff because they're not perfect. They're not a person. I mean, it's one thing for that to be your friend doing something stupid. Then you can at least call them out on it and
Yeah,
be like, "What are
right.
you walking into the wall for, man? Are you
Yeah.
okay?"
Yeah, what the hell is going on? And I really do like the different weapon classes from Imperial and, the alien weaponry because it definitely feels like a blast from the past. You get to
Mm.
customize your loadout in between missions with primary weapons. You get a side piece and a close combat gadget. You also get to find different weapon caches throughout different missions. I thought they were really, really cool. I don't know what was your favorite. Was it a flamethrower? Was it a plasma blaster? Was it sniper rifles? Or let me guess, I'm assuming because you said it earlier, was it the power swords?
I did really, really enjoy the chain sword. That was
Yeah,
probably my
yeah.
favorite melee weapon until I get, the actual big hammer. Then I was just rocking that. But when it comes to the weapons, once I picked up that melt-a-gun for the first time, I was like, I see why this is called the melt-a-gun because it melts
Yeah, and I can see
enemies.
why it's in front of me because it always feels like it's like, yeah, that kind of seems cool, but I kind of like the one I have right now. And it's like, no, it's the game's way of trying to tell you, you might want to have this right now
Yeah, and that
for what's to
flamethrower
come.
was also really cool. Especially they give it to you right before you have a couple segments where you have to basically fight off against a huge room of just like rats,
Yeah,
and the flamethrower is your way of fighting against them and making a pathway. That was awesome. I
yeah,
really enjoyed that. They're like, you need this.
yeah.
Like you said, they
It's
take
definitely
this.
it's definitely a bombastic, video game experience. Definitely with the gameplay. Let's not forget the
Mhm.
explosives with the sticky bombs and shock grenades and so much more. But just even performing executions not only makes you look like a total badass, but also, regenerates your shields. And I find that to be a really, really cool factor in the game because it's like, how do I revive my health bar? Well, forget running for cover. Just smack your enemies around. And I think that's a really, really cool like way of just really continuing, the gun gameplay throughout the game, because they're like, we don't want you to hide.
It's the whole thing that Doom and Doom Eternal did, the newer ones, Doom 2016 and Eternal, where you're not meant to be hiding in the corner, doing pot shots at enemies. You go
Right.
in and you rip them apart, and that's how you get your health or armor back.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, that's a much more fast-paced game, and you're playing as a enemy to the demons in that game that they fear you. Whereas in this game, they don't really fear you in the same way, but that whole concept is a really good thing to take advantage of when you're playing real big dudes who can rip enemies in half, because
Yeah.
that just makes you want to be in the midst of everything as the chaos is going on.
And just like how you said, real big dudes. And, I know you were just talking a little bit just now about how, like, sometimes playing on the PC felt a bit clunky, but I think that's part of the charm, HenricK. I mean, if you were wearing that armor, I'd probably feel like I was trying to juggle like a fridge while running a marathon. So really, the clunky controls just make you feel more immersed. I would argue that, because I can imagine, trying to haul all that heavy gear
That's true, yeah.
mission
Yeah.
after mission. So
I mean,
that
these guys are,
clunkiness is awesome.
not your average human. They're much taller than them, and bigger and bulkier and augmented as much as they can be. But still, yes, when you have that much on you, you're gonna be a little more awkward to control. That is true. You're
Yeah,
right.
because some people might feel like that kind of game mechanic kind of feels a little outdated, but I would argue I think that was meant to be on purpose. And I'm riveting over this game. I think it's an excellent game. I really felt like they really just focused on trying to make the best gaming experience possible. Yeah, there is quite a story there, but it's nothing like, oh my gosh, spectacular. But they do, add on, to explore the lore of, the sequel, especially with like operations. And oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm having a brain fart on the other game mode right now. Eternal
PvP
Wars.
game mode.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, there's different ways where you can kind of further explore, especially when it's the PvP like you just referenced right now. So I'm gonna go out right now and say it's a repeat. You're gonna have a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a game jumping right into fall and anticipating the winter time to be indoors, I think this game is for you. What do you say, HenricK the Wreck?
Oh, this is a definite repeat for me as well. I mean, the PvP, I could see that maybe dying off and, not really being that active in the next couple of years. But the story missions, you could always hop into that with some friends and have
Yeah.
some fun. I feel like that'll last for a very long time. And this is also a great opportunity for people who haven't really gotten into Warhammer 40K to actually take a closer look at it and see what it's all about, because it does a great job of introducing you to that. And that's a huge huge lore universe to hop into, and it's a shame that we don't get as much media from it that we maybe should, because it's
Hey, it's like
something
what
that a
we
lot of
said,
people would
kind of.
enjoy.
It's like what we said in patch notes like last week. Sony always kind of struggling with their own IP, having, to step in and cancel Concord. And they're like, what do we got? What do we got? Well, hey, people, look at this is like an amazing success story. This was an original IP that was over a decade ago, and you got Killzone and you got Resistance out there. And it's like, why don't you just explore that still? People will come back to it. And clearly this is a successful win. And so you heard it from HenricK the Wreck and Chris Collins himself, baby. We're both saying it's a repeat. So what are you waiting for, gamers? Jump along for the ride for Space Marines 2.